What's kicking, everybody? You are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. We're here to talk about UFC 266. I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how are you tonight, brother?
I'm doing good. We have a phenomenal card. I'm talking about this is probably one of the cards of the. We have UFC 266, 267, and 268 all coming up in like the next 6 weeks here. They're going to be great. They're going to be some of the best cards of the year, some of the best cards of all time. I can't wait to talk about them. Every single fight on this card, top to bottom, is a great fight, barred like one or two. So I'm really pumped to talk about this fight and to watch it this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I couldn't agree with you more. This one is going to be an absolute banger of a night. Mac is our special guest tonight. Mac of Follow My Locks on Twitter. Mac, how are you tonight, brother?
Good. Ready for a good fight. It's been a while since we've had a card like this. Ready to roll. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've been kind of not boring fight night cards, but really not like on par with what we're about to get over these next couple of weeks, like Tom said. But, I'm super excited. So as we always do, we're going to start off with our prelim locks. I'll kick it over to Tom. Tom, what is your numero uno first off the bat prelim lock for us?
First one is going to be Matt Semelsberger over Martin Sano. Reason being is because Martin Sano really shouldn't be in the UFC. The guy is 4-2-1. Looking at him on Tapology, he's unranked. Honestly, he's friends with Nick and Nate Diaz, and that's the real reason why he's on this card. A lot of people around have been saying that. You go and you look at some of his past fights. I mean, he fought in 4 years ago. He fought to a majority decision with Bellator against Diego Herzog. 4 years ago was his last fight, and that was a majority draw. Then 5.5 years ago was a loss, and 6 and 8 months ago was another loss. So he's on a 2-fight losing streak and then a draw, and he hasn't fought within the last 4 months. And now he's fighting in the UFC. Explain that to me. We saw Matthew Semelsberger. He came out. He had a good fight, a good hard fight against Chaos Williams. Before that was on at least a 4-fight win streak, knocking people out. He's been more active. He's the younger guy. He's used to the division. He's used to the UFC. Why this was a fight that was even made, I'm not sure. Tapology, 97% Semelsberger. The odds all in Semelsberger's favor. They opened at -350. Now you'll be lucky to get it for anything less than -500. Matt Semelsberger, definitely my first lock of the card.
Yeah, I hate to bet with Tapology sometimes when the whole public is favoring like one fighter like that, especially upwards of 90%. But in a case like Semelsberger right now, I feel like you have to take him. -500, that's a little bit tough, but you add them to your parlay, that's a little bit of added value depending on which way you're betting with that one. Mac, what are you thinking?
I like Semelsberger. It looks like he's 366 right now, right? -366. Sano's 257. So yeah, I think Semelsberger easily gets the win there.
Yeah, those lines are certainly going to move as we get closer to the fight. So I got my first prelim lock for you, and that's actually Chris Daukaus over Shamil Abdurakhimov. So Chris Daukaus, this is a dude, right? Chris Daukaus, one of the infamous Daukaus brothers. And Tom does have this rule. There can only be one good sibling in sports at a time. Well, Chris Daukaus is definitely the better of the Daukaus brothers over his smaller, somewhat weaker brother Kyle. Chris Daukaus is a guy we've seen TKO Alexei Oleinik, longtime favorite of UFC fans. Long story short, I'll keep it quick for you right now. Chris Daukaus, those hands work, baby. Those hands work. And Shamil, he's a little bit older. He's a little bit more worn. Chris Daukaus, on the other hand, that chin hasn't taken as much damage over the years. And, I like him to really just put a beat down on Shamil in this fight. Tom, what do you think about that one? You riding with me on Chris Daukaus there?
Yeah, I like Daukaus, and I like Daukaus for a lot of reasons. He's the younger guy. He's a fast starter. He's aggressive. He throws heavy hands, especially early on. And you look at Shamil Abdurakhimov. His last fight was 2 years ago. It was a loss, a ground and pound loss to Curtis Blades. So 2 years, 40 years old. He's going to have they're going to be the same exact size. Maybe he'll be a little bit heavier. But at the end of the day, he's been KO'd. He's been finished a lot, and you're old, and you haven't fought in 2 years against a guy who's a fast starter and is known for his heavy hands and his boxing and his ability to knock punch people out. Last fight, like you said, Alexei Oleinik 6 months ago, knees and punches, going on KOs Rodrigo Namaciento, Parker Porter a KO a year ago. So he's been active. He's been knocking people out. You're going against an older guy who hasn't been active. His last fight was a loss. Didn't look great. Yeah, definitely Chris Daukaus all the way.
Yeah, something to keep an eye out for. He's fighting Shamil Abdurakhimov. This guy's 40. Alexei Oleinik was like 44 at the time that Chris Daukaus beat him up. Chris Daukaus, you got to be careful fighting these old guys, and they might put you in jail for elder abuse. Mac, what do you think about that? You're riding with us with Chris Daukaus?
Yeah, I'm gonna ride with that one as well. I like the younger guy most of the time. Looks like their reach is about the same. Weight is right around the same. They're both 6'2", so pretty even on the the sizing. But I'll go with the younger guy and Chris Daukaus.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you're rolling with us. 2 for 2. We got Mac on our side. Tom, who is your second prelim lock?
So I got Nick Maximov over Carl Roberson. And the reason I'll say that is Nick Maximov, another Diaz brother friendly, but this time this guy actually deserves to be there. He's 6-0. He's got wins over some really, really good competition on the on the regional scene. He beat Oscar Cota on the Contender Series 10 months ago. Carl Roberson, he's fought okay competition, actually pretty good competition when you look at it. He lost to Glover Teixeira via an arm triangle in 2019, beat Wellington Turman, lost to Marvin Vittori, lost to Brendan Allen. But Nick Maximov, he's going to be the heavier guy in there. I think he's just going to be the better fighter. Carl Roberson is really not good when it comes to his ground game. It's really been a weakness of his, being able to have been taken down by Marvin Vittori, submitted by rear naked choke. When he fought Brendan Allen, he was submitted via heel hook. So that's really a problem of Carl Roberson, and it's really a strength of Nick Maximov. Nick Maximov is 200. They're going in there. I don't even see what they're fighting. I think they're fighting at 185. But Nick Maximov fought heavyweight actually on the Contender Series, and he has taken his opponent down multiple times. And if you can fight at heavyweight without actually being a heavyweight, take your guy down multiple times. When you fight in your actual weight class, I think Carl Roberson is going to be he's going to take him to the ground. And I think that's ultimately where this is going to finish. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Nick Maximov as a prelim lock. 72% of the 1,100 votes on Tapology also have Maximov winning it, with 71% of that going by submission. And I'm going to follow with the bettors there. I know we don't normally go with the public, but I think that's the general public. I actually believe I like to vote with the people of Tapology, especially when we film this show. We film it on Tuesdays. We maybe even be looking to do it earlier. And any savage that's scouring Tapology 1-2 weeks prior to the event probably knows what they're talking about and is in the know, and I'm fine betting with them because those are the same people just like us going in, week, 2 weeks in advance. So with Tapology this early in the week, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to follow it. I'm definitely taking Nick Maximov over Carl Roberson.
I like the pick, dude. And you know what? You're right. Yeah, we're filming this Tuesday. We're probably going to end up filming this earlier in the week. But yeah, you're right. Dude, this early in the week, those Tapology fiends, absolute fiends out there looking at Tapology, trying to get their votes in now, trying to be correct, trying to be on the right side of history. They typically know their stuff. So I'll ride with you on that, rolling with Maximov. What do you think about that Maximov pick, Mac?
I didn't actually have a chance to look at this fight. Everything that you guys said makes sense. I wanted to go into my lock of the prelim, my prelim pick. I'm gonna go with Dan Hooker over Nasrat. I like the size difference. I really like Dan Hooker. He's got a few inches on Nasrat. He had some issues getting over from New Zealand. I don't know if you guys saw that, but they've been super locked down with COVID, and it was actually social media that literally blew up the New Zealand government and basically got him to come to make this fight. Nasrat also he lost his mother, unfortunately, a week ago. So, you never know with that type of situation. He probably isn't in the right mindset to be fighting or working any kind of job, to be honest. The line opened at plus 155, and it's been steamed down to plus 125 for Nasrat. So I'm going to fade the public here and go with Dan Hooker.
You know, I don't hate the pick entirely, but I will say this, right? Dan Hooker did have his issues getting out of New Zealand, but one thing that's, you know, because MMA Twitter was all over the case when it came to Dan Hooker getting out of New Zealand, Nasrat is also having a hard time as we speak right now getting out of Germany to get to the U.S. Great pick, great point that Tom brought up before we started filming. Also, you know, you want to counter this a little bit too. Nasrat, yes, his mother died, but Dan Hooker, one of his training partners, one of his good friends, also a friend of Israel Adesanya. I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm not gonna say it, but this fella, he was murdered in the streets. He got punched in the back of the head by a gang of 4 to 5 guys who, on top of, you know, not only murdering this fella, but got what Dan Hooker feels is an unjust sentence of just house arrest. So, you know, I will say tensions are high for both of these guys. Both of these guys are having their own personal struggles, losing somebody in their life. They're having a hard time getting out of their countries, securing those visas, those working visas to come over to the United States and fight. So I'm having a hard time siding with one guy or another in this fight. But what I will tell you is that if the over-under odds in this fight come out at 1.5, I like the under in that a lot because I have a feeling that both of these guys are going to be swinging heavily. Both of these guys have a lot to fight for. And possibly being that they're still not in the United States, I mean, you gotta pay attention to this, right? Alexander Volkonovsky is coming from Australia, and he's here over a week in advance for the fight. Dan Hooker won't be here till Thursday. Who knows if Nasrat's even going to be here? This could potentially be an open weight fight because they may not have enough time to cut that weight. So we may be seeing 2 heavy lightweights. I have a feeling that with all the circumstances in these guys' personal lives being what they are, we probably are going to see some heavy swinging. We're probably going to see a stand-up, more of a boxing or kickboxing, you know, type of match.
Yep.
I think with all those factors combined, the weight, the tension, the things that they have to fight for, I have a feeling that this is going to be an early ending fight, and I like it if it comes out at 1.5. I mean, I can't see it being any lower than that. So if it's at 1.5, especially if it's a 2.5 for an over-under rounds, I'm taking the under there. I like someone to get finished early, especially by a method of KO or TKO. You know, if you're feeling one guy one way or the other, there could be extra money to be made there, but I'm definitely liking the under on this one. Having a hard time siding with one guy one way or another, but I'm rolling with the under, especially if it's at 1.5 or 2.5 rounds. 3-round fights.
Maybe I can help you decide which guy to bet on here. Dan Hooker's coming in. Do I have to tell you Dan's resume of fighters? Well, I will anyway. Dan Hooker, responsible for almost putting away and beating Dustin Poirier just a couple fights ago. If that second or third round was maybe 5 or 10 seconds longer, Dustin Poirier would have been put away by Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's previous 2 fights, Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier. He lost a war against Dustin Poirier and turned around not all that quickly, but he turned around 6 months later, lost to Michael Chandler, probably pumped up, took a risk. This guy, Dan Hooker, he's Australian from City Kickboxing, doesn't care. He fights anybody at any time. He's got wins over Paul Felter, Ali Aquinta, and James Vick, all 3 of those before that. And before that was fighting Edson Barboza. Before that, Gilbert Burns, Jim Mayhem Miller, Mark Diaz. Listen, these guys that he's fighting are top of the division stalwarts. Nasrat Haqparast, Nasrat Haqparast, before he's fighting Dan Hooker, is fighting Rafa Garcia and Alex Munoz. He lost to Drew Dober, and Drew Dober's out there losing to Brad Riddell and Islam Makhachev. Listen, Brad Riddell, Islam Makhachev, they're solid guys, but they're not anywhere near the top of the division. They're nowhere near where Dan Hooker is. Dan Hooker's going to come in there. He already has everything secured. Nasrat still has to secure it, so we're not even sure if he's going to be able to get in there and fight. Like you said, emotional turmoil of the parents, I think, would actually help lean towards Nasrat, because I think sometimes, you lose a parent, you go out and you have, crazy good performances. Look at, Aaron Jones yesterday with the Green Bay Packers, before his dad goes out there with 4 touchdowns. Thank God I had him on my fantasy team, brought me back like 37, 40 points, something crazy like that. Regardless, the main reason, the deciding factor why I'm picking Dan Hooker is because when the odds are kind of even, when Vegas is kind of even, but Tapology and I am far split, and I think, hey, mentally, I think these odds should be further apart than where they are. Listen, Nasrat Haqparast, we just went through his resume. It's nowhere near what Dan Hooker is. I think Dan Hooker is the better fighter, the solid fighter. He's a little bit older. He's got a little bit more experience, but he's still in his prime. He's a little bit longer. He's taller, and he's got getting there already squared away. So I think he's in a much better mindset. I'm picking Dan Hooker, but the odds, looking at them right now, only have a minus 145 across the board pretty much. But Tapology has Dan Hooker 82% of the votes on Dan Hooker. That tells me that I think Dan Hooker is not getting the love from Vegas that he deserves to, at least not yet. So I want to go in there. I want to hammer Dan Hooker and get some value, because I think as we get closer to this fight, more people are going to realize, hey, Dan's been around longer. He's got more experience. He's the better fighter. I think the lines are going to shift. So I think you really want to take advantage of Dan Hooker at minus 150 if you can get it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just looked at the sorry, Keith. The total is 2.5 for that. It opened at 2.5.
Love it. I love that. I think based on Tom's logic, and I totally agree, the resume just completely outmatches Nasrat's resume 110%. Like, you go back and you look at that Dustin Poirier fight, and Dustin Poirier is now going up to fight for the belt. Dan Hooker gave him a war. And I will say this about the Michael Chandler fight. Like, Michael Chandler did move on to fight for the championship for a reason, was the champion at Bellator for a reason, one of my favorite fighters for a reason. So, getting finished by Michael Chandler, that's not the end of the world. Dan Hooker, I'm taking him. I especially like him. This may or may not be out just yet, but Dan Hooker by a TKO in the second round, that's where the big money is to be made this weekend. That's what I think. Mac, what are you about to say?
I like that. I was looking at some of the odds. Dan Hooker is, I see, minus 145, minus 155. And like I said, there's a lot of money coming in on Nasrat. I don't really understand why. It opened at 155, went down to 125. So like Tom said, I think this number is going to go up in Hooker's favor as we get, closer to the fight. So if you can grab minus 145, 150 now, it should be, I could see it being minus 180 by the time the fight starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now is the time to lock these in before the rest of the people out there placing their bets really get to them, before Vegas takes notice of that. Dan Hooker, right now, if you lock it in now, whenever you're watching this video out there is money to be made on Dan the Hangman Hooker. So I feel like we said enough about that one. I got another prelim lock for you, and it's actually the what's it called when it's the premier fight of the prelims, and that's Marlon Moraes versus Merab Dvalishvili. I'm taking Merab. Merab is an incredible wrestler, and Marlon Moraes definitely more of a stand-up type of guy, and we've seen Merab Dvalishvili take guys to deep water and just grab them by their seatbelt, drag them all over the edge of the cage, win by decision, and he's on let me count this up, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, 5. Okay, 5-fight win streak dating back to 2019. And one of the more impressive ones that I see is coming over Casey Kenny, who just fought Song Yadong. Now, he didn't give Song Yadong that great of a battle, but Casey Kenny, still nobody to be messed with. He's still out there making a name for himself right now. I definitely see Merab Dvalishvili just pulling out those wrestling skills, basically just out-wrestling Marlon Moraes for a good 3 rounds, probably winning by decision. And, I will say this, Merab Dvalishvili, he's another guy who's really trying to make a name for himself, work his way up in the rankings. Well, you look at the rankings, and maybe they don't count to everybody, but they clearly count to fighters who are trying to get their way up to the belt. Merab Dvalishvili, he's number 11. Marlon Moraes is number 6. Now, not without good reason. He's been in there, had some good battles, has some good wins. But Merab Dvalishvili is definitely more active, in my opinion, at least. He fought Cody Stamann back in May. So that's really not too long ago, and that was a pretty easy win for him. So I really like Merab Dvalishvili here. I definitely see him being a guy who starts to make a run at being a contender in the bantamweight division, a very good division. I'm really feeling Merab Dvalishvili here, and if I had to guess, by way of decision, that would be my pick right there for it. Not seeing those on FanDuel right now based on method of victory, but when those odds come out, give me Merab by decision. What do you think about that, Tom?
Yeah, I also like Merab, which makes me nervous that we've been picking all the same sides. But Marlon Moraes, I think he's solid. He's actually really good, and he's got some really good wins when you look back, at his past. He's a little bit chinny as of late, losing by punches via Rob Font when he dropped what was pretty much just a jab, losing via wheel kick in Corey Sanhagen, ground and pound Henry Cejudo dating back to 2019. So he's been chinny lately, and Merab is a guy who's a real aggressive sambo type wrestler who's going to stick to you. And Marlon is really aggressive in the first round, but then kind of wanes on people. He's a muscular guy, and when you see the guy in the cage, it looks like he's 100 just all muscle. So he's not going to be able to keep up that pace for the length. Whereas Merab, he almost gets better as the fight goes on. He's wrestling. He'll stick to you. He's like glue. He's got really aggressive, long fight wins over Casey Kenny, like you said, John Dodson, Cody Stamen. He's been the more active fighter. He's a Samba guy. He's affiliated with Sarah Jiu-Jitsu. He fighting out of New York, that American or not American Top Team, that Team Alpha Male style. Over there, like your New Jersey, your Brooklyn type people, the Matt Serra style, aggressive. I like Merab. I like that style. I think those guys over there are just very they're aggressive in their approach, and we don't bet against Georgian fighters. We just don't. I did a couple weeks ago against Giga Chikadze. I thought Edson Barboza was going to do it. I was wrong, and I should have lied. I should have known. You don't bet against a Georgian fighter, and that's just the end of it. I don't have to justify picking Merab Dvalishvili any more than the fact that he is Russian.
Yeah, we saw that last week. We saw that with
not Russian, Georgian. Well, Russian too, but Georgian more specifically. Yeah.
We saw that last week, even with Jan Kudalaba, basically kneeing in his opponent's gum, and
that was disgusting. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing, beautiful violence, but at the same time, it's like, oof.
I couldn't look at it.
Yeah, I there's times in everybody's life, especially anybody's UFC that's a UFC fan, they think about getting into the octagon. They're like, I could do this, and then they see an injury like that, and they're like, no, I don't want to get whole mouth reconstruction surgery, so never mind. Yeah, no, thank you, sir.
Also, one other lock real quick. We don't have to talk too much on it, but Roxanne Modafferi is fighting on this card, so I'm picking Talia Santos. Roxanne Modafferi, she sucks. She's had 40 professional fights. Still looks like she's the one fighting without an eye, not Michael Bisping. So, she's terrible. Bet against her, fade her. Hasn't done me wrong in the past. Picking against Roxanne Modafferi, Talia Santos for sure.
Yeah, definitely sprinkle a little bit on Roxanne's opponent, no matter who it is. She could be fighting Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or she could be fighting Hasbulla, and I would take Hasbulla over Roxanne Modafferi. So, always bet against Roxanne because she's just the absolute worst.
She's 25-18 women's flyweight, which is a weak division in and of itself. Talia Santos is a bigger girl. She's gonna take her down. She's 17-1. It's a total mismatch. Talia Santos, she's minus 450, I think right now. It's a rough thing from a betting perspective, but I'd like to call it a lock, closest thing to a lock.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Always bet against Roxanne. So, Mac, do you have any more prelim locks for us? Otherwise, we'll move on.
I don't necessarily have another prelim lock. I just wanted to go. So the Merab fight, it actually opened that they were both minus 110, and it's gone to minus 240 for Merab, which is pretty crazy. You don't see that too often, especially this early. So there must be a ton of sharp money coming in on Merab. And I'm on the same side as Tom with the Georgian thing, right? He has those judo skills where they kind of just grab onto you and don't let go. So if I was to lean one direction, it would be there. But like I said, the only people betting on fights at this point are definitely sharper pro type bettors, and it's been a while since I've seen a line open at minus 110 and go all the way to minus 240 this quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of only smart people looking at it right now, UFC odds right now via Bovada and sports betting for Euros Medic versus Jaylen Turner are minus 130 on Euros Medic. However, when we go to Tapology, 83% of the 1,100 votes are on Medic, 78% by KO or TKO. He's 7-0 coming in, fighting out of Serbia, he is of Serbian nationality, fighting out of Anchorage, Alaska. 28 years old, 100. They're fighting in the 155 pounds. Actually, they're fighting lightweight. His opponent, Jaylen Turner, coming down from 165, so he's going to have to be cutting a lot of weight. He's a little bit longer, but the Eurosmanic seems to be, his nickname is the Doctor. Don't know too much about him, but looking back at his past fights, a TKO win over Alan Cruz 6 months ago, another TKO victory on Dana White's Contender Series just over a year ago. Jaylen Turner submission over Brooke Weaver. But either way, the thing that attracted me to this fight is the disparity on what the line is, minus 130 plus 100, generally kind of even lines, and just how far of a favorite Medic is by the Tapology voters. 7-0 guy. Because of those reasons, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on Medic, maybe even a little for a TKO. It seems like you can probably get good odds on that, and maybe slide out of this one with a couple really good bets. Make a lot of money on UFC 266.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, Euros Medic. You had me at Serbian fighting out of Anchorage, Alaska. That's a scary man right there, especially with a nickname like the Doctor. I feel like he's just going to reach inside somebody and rearrange their organs. Maybe even do it from the outside with a couple of well-placed kicks and punches. So, yeah, I'm definitely rolling with you on that Euros Medic pick. Wow, there's definitely
every single fight he's been in up into this. Every professional fight, he's finished every single one. Punches, triangle choke, TKO, kicks to ground and pound, flying knee to ground and pound. Expect explosivity out of this guy, Euros Medic, the Doctor.
Wow. We're making some money off of Euros Medic this week. I hope all the people at home that like and subscribe and comment on these videos have made it this far and are finding out about Euros Medic. I really hope so. So do you guys have any more prelim picks for us? Because I've gone through mine.
I just looked at the opening and what it's at now for Medic. It looks like there's a lot of sharp money on Jaylen Turner. I don't know too much about this guy. It opened at plus 160 and it's gone down to plus 100. And Medic opened as a minus 185 favorite and it's at minus 125 now.
Interesting.
So I don't know. Somebody sees something in Jaylen Turner.
Yeah, there's definitely just one guy out there in the middle of nowhere betting millions and millions of dollars on Jaylen Turner, possibly his dad or an uncle or something like that.
That could be it.
Yeah, I'm still rolling with Euros Medic on that one. I feel like that's just a gem of a pick in my opinion, especially with looking at Tapology, because those people on Tapology, listen, you might be at home listening to this and saying, wow, Tom, Keith, and Mac, they really know what they're talking about. You know, they understand betting and these guys understand the UFC, but I will say this, those people on Tapology, they deserve their own platform to just be talking every week. They really know their shit sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So I'm rolling with the Tapologists over with Euros Medic. So we're going to move on to the main card now. We got Jessica Andrade versus Cynthia Calvillo. Jessica Andrade, she fought Valentina Chavchenko for the women's strawweight belt, if I'm not mistaken, and was absolutely dominated, ended by a TKO in the crucifix position on the ground by Valentina Shevchenko. It was pretty funny, you know, all week on Embedded, Andrade was talking about how she was going to out-wrestle Valentina Shevchenko, and then Valentina Shevchenko took her to the ground, put her in one of the most uncomfortable positions that you can be in on the ground, where it's called a crucifix because both arms are pinned out to the sides, and whoever is on top, you can do whatever they want with you. And that's exactly what happened with Jessica Andrade. But I'm still taking Jessica Andrade here, you know, both moving down from strawweight. Jessica Andrade, you know, she held the belt there for a little bit, and Cynthia Calvillo was a contender, but never achieved the leather around her waist the way that Jessica Andrade did. Now they're moving down to women's flyweight, and I still think that Jessica Andrade is too much of a mismatch for Cynthia Calvillo. I have a feeling that just based on where they were before, that Jessica Andrade, she's going to dominate this fight. It's crazy, the disparaging talent in the women's UFC divisions. There's like level A, and you have, the types at the very top where it's like Amanda Nunes, and you have Valentina Chavchenko, and then you have the Joanna Jędrzejczyks and the Rosanama Eunices over on that side. But Jessica Andrade is like level B. And still, level B is good enough to beat women like Cynthia Calvillo. She's good on her feet. She's pretty solid on the ground. And, I have a feeling, I don't know how the method of victory is going to come about in this one for Jessica Andrade. It could be a decision. It could be a little bit more of a boring fight, but I like Jessica Andrade to just go out there and absolutely maul Cynthia Calvillo through 3 rounds. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think she's gonna win. I mean, the simple fact is that Cynthia Calvillo struggled to be a contender at strawweight, division that Jessica Andrade was the champion of. She beat Rose Namajunas to win that belt in 2019, and in 2019, she's out here losing to she's tying Marina Rodriguez. So just different levels of competition. These fighters, these women's fighters in the flyweight and the strawweight division, there's a big gap in terms of the upper echelon, and then like you were saying, the people who are good enough to be in the UFC but really not good enough to contend. And Cynthia Calvillo is in the good enough to be in the UFC but maybe not good enough to contend, maybe not yet. And Jessica Andrade she's in the upper echelon. She's not the champion of 125 right now because being reigned by somebody far superior, but Valentina Chavchenko, but it doesn't mean she's not number 3 or number 4. I think it's Valentina at 125, and then there's a giant gap, and then maybe number 5 you have Jessica Andrade. She's one of these ladies in the 125 division. But yeah, I think Andrade's going to win this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, dude. Mac, what do you think? You rolling with us on Andrade, or you want to take the underdog?
I don't know. I like taking underdogs, but I don't know about this one. Have you ever seen Andrade fight? Just the way she looks crazy. Like if I was a girl, I would be frightened to fight this girl. She just looks like an insane person, and there's been some social media going back and forth between the two of them, and I think Andrade easily wins. I think Calvillo has a couple inches on her, and I think her goal of the fight will probably be to take it to the ground. But I think Andrade easily gets the win.
Yeah, Andrade's size has never really let her down. She might be a little bit smaller, but some would compare her to a little pit bull in the way that she uses. Pit bulls are tiny. They're not really the most physically imposing dogs out there in the dog world. They're no Great Danes, but they're small. They have that, that jaw that really pulls you in, and it doesn't let you go. And that's the fight style that Jessica Andrade uses against some of these, like Tom was saying, good enough to be in the UFC, not good enough to contend type of women. So we're all rolling with Jessica Andrade here. So next up, we got Curtis Blades going up to fight Biggie Boy, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I'm a little bit more conflicted on this one. Leaning towards, I don't even want to say it because I have a feeling Tom is going to disagree with me. I'm leaning towards Biggie Boy, but I'll let Tom make his argument and see if he can sway me in one direction or the other. Tom, who are you taking in this?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Curtis Blades, and I'll tell you why. Because Jairzinho Rozenstruik, when he goes in there and he tries to fight people who can stand and strike, he can fight almost most people. Coming with that really with that phenomenal kickboxing background. He can beat people standing on the feet. He beat Augusto Sakai standing on the feet, but he lost to Cyril Gane on the feet. This is a guy who goes lose, win, lose, win, lose. His last was a win against Augusto Sakai, so that makes me believe it's going to be a loss here. But he's not a guy that has shown us he has any ability to contend with a real grappler, with a real wrestler. When he fought Cyril Gane was content to stand and fight with him and outpointed him. Augusto Sakai, he beat him, but he beat him via punches on the feet. Beat him at the end of that first round, right at the end. Augusto Sakai almost got out of that first round, but he got caught him with I think it was a nice right hook or a left hook combination. Beat Junior Dos Santos, but right hook to grounded pound, loses punches, be just an onslaught from Francis Ngannou. This isn't a guy who has shown us that he has any real capability to stay standing against a competition that's competent. Francis Ngannou is not going to take you down. Junior Dos Santos didn't take you down. Cyril Gay is not taking you down. Augusto Sakai is not taking you down. So, these guys hadn't really made any major attempt to take down Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I think Curtis Blaydes is gonna. And Curtis Blaydes has had guys, he was fighting Derek Lewis, a guy who just fought for the interim belt against Cyril Gane, and he's a guy who he was winning in that fight. Curtis Blaydes is a lot, I think, more dynamic of an MMA fighter than Jairzinho Rozenstruik is. I think he's going to be able to be smart enough to not get caught. It's not like Jairzinho is going to come out of nowhere and catch you, like lure you in with a rope-a-dope style that's going to lull you to sleep, kind of like Derek. Derek Lewis tricks people. I don't think Jairzinho is going to trick you. I think he may be able to out-technically fight you. But I think Curtis Blaydes is going to be smart enough to, be aware of the technical style of the fighting, being able to come in, get Jairzinho on the ground, and finish it on the ground. I don't know if he's necessarily going to submit him, but I think he's definitely going to bring this fight to the ground. And I don't see Jairzinho Rozenstruik winning a multitude of rounds because of that.
Yeah, it's tough, because after watching Curtis Blaydes and Derek Lewis fight, you're saying to yourself, maybe as a fan of the UFC, a fan of MMA, you might be saying like, does Curtis Blaydes like absolutely just telegraph his takedowns where Derek Lewis was able to catch him with that uppercut that put him to sleep? It was one hit and Curtis Blaydes was donezo. But I think you're right. Biggie Boy is more of a kickboxer. He's not so much of a, play possum type of guy that Derek Lewis is. He's technical, but he's not as smart and as crafty as Derek Lewis is. This is still a tough one for me. If I absolutely have to pick, I'm going to take the underdog here just because. I'm going to take Biggie Boy just to split up where me and Tom are going. We've been having the same bets all night, past couple of weeks. I'm going with Biggie Boy on this one, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I kind of like him to catch Curtis Blaydes with something in this fight. And it's going to have to be a catch. It's not going to be anything that's like Curtis Blaydes is probably going to be clearly winning the match. And probably taking Jairzinho to the ground, maybe laying on top of him like a heated blanket all round one. And then possibly Jairzinho Rozenstruik goes out there, does something similar to Augusto Sakai, maybe baits Curtis Blaydes into a takedown. But these are all maybes, on paper, Curtis Blaydes is just going to smother Biggie Boy for 3 rounds. But I'm feeling risky. I'm feeling ballsy. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Good old Biggie Boy to beat Curtis Razor Blaydes here. Mac, what do you think?
I like the underdog in this fight as well. It opened at 250. It's gone down to 240. So it looks like Vegas is a little bit scared of some of the money coming in on Rozenstruik. I like Biggie Boy as well. I've seen him fight quite a bit. I think he only has 2 losses. And then, Curtis Blaydes is obviously a great fighter. The only fights he's lost was against Ngannou and Derek Lewis. And, if Derek Lewis hits anybody with a punch like that, I feel like they're going to be knocked out. But like you said, it's kind of weird watching Curtis Blaydes. Sometimes he can't really decide if he's going to be a striker or a takedown guy. So it'd be interesting to see in this fight what approach he takes. But I definitely like Rozenstruik coming out with, some sort of knockout. I don't see him winning by decision. But, I'd definitely sprinkle a little bit of money on Rozenstruik and probably Rozenstruik by knockout.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely the big ballsy bet to make here would be Jairzinho Rozenstruik by knockout. Still, those prop bets are not out. We're filming this on Tuesday right now. But if I had to guess, probably around the plus 400, maybe 450 to 500 type of range. If you're feeling a little ballsy out there, that may be the way to, throw your money down. You got a little money to blow. You want to make a little bit of money.
Is Augusto Sakai a good fighter? I don't know him.
Yeah, he's solid. He's solid. He's towards the top of the middle top of the division, probably like. I don't know what his rank is off the top of my head, but I would probably place him between like, numbers 5 and 8 ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has Biggie Boy has a great resume. He beat Augusto, lost to Cyril Gane. He beat Dos Santos. He beat Overeem, Arlovsky. So he's beaten some good people.
Yeah, I will say this though, Tom was 100% correct with that win-loss type of trend for Jairzinho Rosenstrike. And that is the thing that makes me most skeptical here, outside of MMA itself, is the fact that there is a trend here that we're seeing. And maybe coming off of a win, this is not the most motivated Biggie Boy like the one that we saw against Augusto Sakai, where he's like, okay, lost my last fight, have to win this one. Might be a little bit complacent, maybe not. I don't know, but that trend is the thing that speaks the most volumes to me here. So moving on up, we got Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. So this is a rematch of a fight that happened how long ago, Tom? Was that 2006?
No, it was 2004.
Wow, even longer, 2004. So, wow, almost 20 years ago, these two guys met in the octagon, and it was an extremely entertaining fight with Nick Diaz eventually winning, showboating his whole way throughout the entire fight. Robbie Lawler continuing a fight, getting finished by guys like Van Askren. But overall, just good fighters. Nick Diaz having to take a little bit of a break because of a USADA suspension for the ganja, the marijuana, weed, pot, whatever you call it out there. Nick Diaz, one of the Diaz brothers. Sure, you heard of Nate if you haven't heard of Nick, but incredible fighter. And I will say this, I'm taking Nick Diaz in this one. Robbie Lawler is, in my opinion, a slightly more complete fighter. At the time that these guys fought in 2004, Robbie Lawler had hair and was beating everybody up, just knocking the blocks off of guys. But Nick Diaz went out there, showboated like he always did, acted like an absolute gangster, stocked and slapped Robbie Lawler, and came out with the W. I have a feeling it's going to be a repeat of that, despite the fact that Nick Diaz has taken over 5 years away from the sport. My main reason for saying that is like when this fight first opened, I believe it was like minus 225 for Robbie Lawler back when it was way first announced maybe a month or two ago. But after seeing the embedded videos, which, if you're not watching those on YouTube, great videos, wait until the end of this one to go watch that one. But Nick Diaz just looks like a different type of animal. He's still that gangster type of guy, but he looks way more focused on this fight than he ever has in his past fights throughout his career. And I think that he wants to make a real reemergence into the UFC world, into MMA. There's a potential that, like, the Diaz brothers being who they are and the money that they bring, the pay-per-view buys and the tickets that they sell, there's real potential for you win this fight, Nick. Who knows where you go from here? You might get like one or two more after this. You get those wins, and then you could end up fighting for a championship belt at some point. That's just how these guys roll. That's how much Dana White loves them, and that's how much the public loves them. And I feel like the motivation is seriously there for Nick Diaz and, separate topic, Nate, to actually go out there and win fights. I don't think that we'll see Nick Diaz doing the things that Nate did in his fight against Leon Edwards, where he's like taunting him and practically twerking halfway through the fight. But, and I say that because Nick Diaz, you watch some of these videos, he's like, I train kids now. I don't go out there to like talk shit and be a gangster. I'm out there to knock Robbie Lawler out. I would like to take him at his word. I really think he's going to do it again, especially after almost 2 decades. Maybe the time away from the sport, we talk about ring rust sometimes, but maybe the time away from the sport for Nick Diaz has actually done well. He's still training. He's still training other people. It's not like he's just been a big couch potato for the past couple of years. And at the underdog line, it opened on the UFC website. They got it at plus 100. I'm going to show you what FanDuel has it at right now. FanDuel is looking like minus 104 for Nick Diaz, minus 118 for Robbie Lawler. So the odds are starting to even out there a little bit. I'm thinking the public is going to take Nick Diaz heavily, but this is one of those times where I'm willing to bet with the public and take Nick Diaz. Tom, what do you think? You rolling with me?
Yeah,
Or?
I think I'm taking Robbie Lawler, and I just kind of flipped on that as of recently. And the reason is because when you look at Nick Diaz's most recent fight, it was against Anderson Silva in 2015, and that was in January of 2015, so I was still in high school, and I am now almost 25 years old, and I know I'm a much different person than who I was in high school, and to compare Nick Diaz 9, 10 years ago against Anderson Silva, no contest, a loss to GSP and a loss to Carlos Condit, who just retired last week. I think to compare him to somebody whose most recent fight before that was in August of 2020, I think that's just, I think you're expecting a lot out of Nick Diaz, something that is going to be really hard for him to perform and deliver, especially considering Nate was out for a while, comes back in against a guy who was also out for a while. And yeah, he looked okay, right? He looked comparable. You're never going to see a Diaz brother look inept at fighting, but it doesn't mean they're going to win the fight. And even when Nate had a chance to win the fight, like he didn't swarm aggressively. Now, maybe that was tactical. We can have that conversation, but the fact of the matter is that even towards the end of the fight, when Nate knew he needed a finish in order to win, he didn't swarm like he was going after a victory. So I don't think that the Diaz brothers here are here to take over in the sense that they're here to win. They're here to get championships. They're here to take over in a traditional sense. I think they're here to bring eyes so that they can dictate a certain narrative and say, yo, the UFC is fucked up because of this or because of that. And the notoriety that they carry with their name is going to be powerful enough that they can do what they want, because the UFC is big enough now. I don't think they want to change shit necessarily in terms of like championships. I just don't think the skill level's there. They're aging. They haven't fought enough. It's a game of people who are active. If you don't play guitar for 9 years, are you going to get in there and be able to shred? Odds are probably not. Or even this, you play guitar every day for 9 years, but you haven't played on stage in 9 years. You're going to get out there and expect to have a great performance. I just don't think so. And Robbie Lawler, he's a guy who, in 2015, he was fighting Rory McDonald in one of the most crazy wars we saw in the UFC. He goes on, he fights Carlos Condit to a split decision, goes on and loses in the split decision victory against Carlos Condit to win the welterweight championship in 2016, a year almost to the day since Nick was out. Right, then you have Tyron Woodley. He loses that fight, beats Donald Cerrone a year later, then loses to RDA, a guy who's still contending in a lightweight division, loses to Ben Askren via bulldog choke, loses to Colby Covington, a guy who's still contending in the welterweight division, loses to Neil Magny, a guy who's still contending. And these are, a lot of these are 5-round fights too that Robbie Lawler's going out there and having wars with and winning and competing. I think Robbie Lawler is going to be able to weather whatever storm Nick Diaz tries to bring on. I think Nick Diaz is going to have a potentially a little bit too much of a fighter's rust to go out there and win a fight against somebody who's been doing it consistently since, he's been out. So for those reasons, I'm picking Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, you could be right. It could be one of those situations where it's like, yeah, Nick can compete and Robbie is the more active fighter as of recent. It's funny because he is still ranked number 15, Robbie Lawler, in the welterweight division. So, it's a tough one there. It's definitely a tough one.
It's a tough one. I agree. I'm going to go with Nick Diaz. I'm going to follow Keith on this one. He's got a reach advantage. He's got 4 inches on him. I don't think you have to worry too much about him being out for as long as he has been, just because, they're the Diaz brothers. They're running marathons. He's going to be in great shape. So not anything that I think you have to worry about.
It's not fighting. It's not his stamina that I'm worried about. It's his just fighting in a fight, like in under the lights, in an event. It's different. There's something about fighting, actively in front of a crowd, in front of people, under the lights with Bruce Buffer, where everything matters. It's just you two. There's that you don't get that from sparring. You have to be able to perform like that,
Yeah. What's his name? Lawler's coming off of 4 losses in a row. He lost to Magny, he lost to Covington. He had that fluke against Askren where he didn't really lose, but Herb Dean called it early because he saw his arm go limp, but he's definitely going to be motivated. That's for sure. Coming off 4 losses and having a big fight, but I don't know. He's older. He's an older guy. I could see, he's almost 40, so this could be one of those fights where they're just trying to get a name on the card to fight Nick Diaz. A lot of people are watching this card specifically for this fight. But I think Lawler's, getting towards the end of his career, and who knows, he could retire after the fight.
Yeah, it's a big time nostalgia fight for sure. I mean, it was a battle. It's an all-time battle back when it happened in 2004. But, it's definitely tough. There's a lot of factors going into this one. One pick I do like is for this to actually go the distance. Tom, is it a 3-round fight or a 5-round fight? I do believe it's only 3, right? Wow, 5-round fight. They really love giving these Diaz brothers 5-round fights. So maybe with that being the case, maybe it could get ended in like the 4th or the 5th. But I do actually like this one to go the distance. I feel like being that these guys are older, Nick Diaz out of it for a little bit. Robbie Lawler suffering some more damage on his chin over the year. Maybe not over the years, not as, super aggressive to get in there and throw shots inside. Maybe could end up going the distance. I like that pick personally. And then it really just comes down to judge's discretion if that's the way that it goes. But, that's
it's the over-under set at 2.5 for that too.
Wow. Well, then the over might be the way to go there. But
yeah.
Those are a lot of ifs. And this is definitely a fight to watch. I mean, this is not the fight to go up and like refill your drink or go get your popcorn for. This is definitely the one to be glued in front of your television and watching. So what a fight it is. It's going to be incredible. I wasn't even old enough. My parents weren't letting me watch UFC when I was like 7 years old. So, that wasn't for me at that time. But now that I'm old enough, I've gone back and rewatched. Great fight the first time. Can't wait to watch it the second time. Next up, we got Valentina Chavchenko versus Lauren Murphy. Guys, we all know that Valentina Chavchenko is going to lose. No, I'm just kidding. She's going to annihilate Lauren Murphy within probably like 2.5 minutes maximum. I mean, Lauren Murphy, like we were saying before, there's levels to this game. Lauren Murphy is just not on par with Valentina Shevchenko. She beat Joanne Calderwood, and somehow beating Joanne Calderwood earned her the title shot. At this point in Valentina Shevchenko's career, they're just lining up names for her to go up against. Like, there's really no reason for this fight to be happening. I feel like they should just really let Valentina just hang on to her belt. I mean, she wants to fight. She wants to stay active. But, like, guys, Sean Shelby, Dana White, if you can't get somebody out there that's actually going to give Valentina Shevchenko a challenge, just let her hang out there, keep her in your back pocket for a little bit. Maybe go send her up to go fight Amanda Nunes once or twice more, maybe 3 times. Valentina Shevchenko is one of the absolute goats, in my opinion. Like, 1A is Amanda Nunes and 1B is Valentina Shevchenko. There's really no reason for this fight to be happening. And if you're not just adding Valentina Shevchenko to your parlay, despite the fact that it's minus 1,250 to open, you're crazy. That's free money right there. Fuck it, throw it in there. You could be betting like $100 and that'll boost your parlay up by like $5, but that's still $5 you didn't have yesterday. So Valentina Shevchenko, she's going to win this one. No doubt about it whatsoever. Nothing more needs to be said, but I will pass it over to Tom. What do you think?
Yeah, Valentina.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't really have much to say about this fight. I don't think anybody's gonna have any serious money on this Murphy girl, but I like the under. Looks like it's at 2.5, opened at 2.5. We'll see if it moves at all as it gets closer to the fight. But I love the under.
Yeah, I like the under as well. I really like prop bet Valentina Shevchenko by TKO, Valentina Shevchenko in round 1. Those are my personal what I'll be throwing the most money on. I don't see Lauren Murphy surviving past round one. It's just not going to happen for her. No shot, Bullet's going to do it again and again and again and again and again. That's it. So finally, for the main event, we got the two tough, the Ultimate Fighter coaches coming against each other. We got Alexander Volkanovsky versus Bryant Ortega. This is definitely a little bit more of a tougher fight to call than the last one. Immensely tougher to call. These two guys are a little bit more well matched. Alexander Volkanovsky's been given some challenges, but he's, still clinging on to that belt. He's fought some of the top guys. He's fought Max Holloway. He's fought some real dudes. And Brian Ortega seems to be that guy that's like constantly working his way up to the title. And then he falls a little bit. And then he works his way back up. And then he falls a little bit. And now he's worked his way back up once again, possibly just by circumstance. They might have just picked him to be the Ultimate Fighter coach and said, hey, this could be a good matchup. These odds, I don't like them so much, but I still will be rolling with Alexander Volkanovsky, former rugby player. I just feel like he's got it. There's really no other way to put it. Like Brian Ortega, he's good on his feet, he's good on the ground, but Alexander Volkanovsky is a true athlete. He doesn't get tired. He goes out there and he brutalizes guys one way or another. And I saw a pretty funny meme, and memes never lie. And that was a rugby player just tackling the shit out of another rugby player. And someone said, what is Brian Ortega going to do? And Alexander Volkanovsky hits him with the rugby tackle. Absolutely nothing. Lay on the ground, probably suck for wind, while Alexander Volkanovsky just pounds his face in. I like this to end by ground and pound for Alexander Volkanovsky. Win this TKO and retain the belt. That's my personal stance on it. Brian Ortega is probably going to try and get a little too fancy. Alexander Volkanovsky does not try to get super fancy like that. He really tries to keep his bread and butter, just stick to the basics. And we've seen guys, all across the board in different sports, those fundamentals do work. And that's what Alexander Volkanovsky is. He's a fundamentals type of guy. So I'm rolling with Volk to win this one. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I'm rolling with Volk too. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Brian Ortega's resume. And if you hadn't watched Brian Ortega fight, you would be like, yo, I don't get it. You beat the Korean Zombie. Granted, it's a great win, right? Korean Zombie, but he lost to Max Holloway. Beat Frankie Edgar in 2018. Granted, it's an aging Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar is always going to be a game Frankie Edgar, but 2018 isn't going to be the same version as a 2014 or a 2015. He beating Cub Swanson in 2017. So Frankie Edgar, losing to Max Holloway, getting more than doubled, almost tripled on the strikes matchup line, and getting TKO'd in the fourth round. Comes back 2 years later after a suspension, beats Chan Sung Jung, and now he's going to beat Volkanovsky. Well, I wonder what Volkanovsky's been doing in just basically since Brian Ortega's last three fights, Edgar, Holloway, and the Korean Zombie, since 2018. Alexander Volkanovsky has fought and beat Jamie Kennedy, Darren the Damage Elkins, Chad Mendez, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway twice.
Yeah.
Beat Max Holloway standing on the feet twice. What in God's blue hell is Brian Ortega going to have for Volkanovsky that he hasn't seen from Max Holloway? Nothing. He's not going to have anything on the feet that Alexander Volkanovsky hasn't seen, hasn't been in there with, hasn't, had to contend with. On the feet, point Volkanovsky. And then when you want to compare about going on the ground, well, I don't think that Brian T. City Ortega is going to be able to get Alexander Volkanovsky on the ground as much as he wants to. Volkanovsky, when he fought Chad Mendez, Chad Mendez got 3 takedowns, but it was ultimately still finished in the second round via TKO. So what does that tell you? That Volkanovsky can defend the takedown. He can keep himself standing if he wants to. He can dictate where it is. Remember, he's a short guy. He's stocky. He's used to being 215, 220 pounds when he played rugby. This guy, his takedown defense is at 72%, so he's got a great takedown defense. If you do get him to the ground, it's going to be hard to keep him there. He's going to beat you on the feet. I really like this fight for Alexander Volkanovsky.
Yeah, definitely agree, dude. There's no other way to put it. You're not going to get a better challenge in the featherweight division on your feet than from Max Holloway. And, famous clip, Brian Ortega forgetting how to block against Max Holloway, and Max Holloway literally picking his hands up for Brian Ortega and putting them on the sides of his heads and like showing him, here's where you block when I hook, here's where you block. That was mid-fight. Like, there's no chance that Brian Ortega wins this one. I don't know why the odds are so close.
He lost via doctor stoppage after the 4th round in 2018. Since then, Volkanovsky has since beaten 2 versions of Max Holloway. Each time, I'm sure he'll tell you he was better. And then after those 2 times he got beat, Max Holloway went on to absolutely annihilate Calvin Kattar. Murder Calvin Kattar in the single most dominant striking performance we may have ever seen in the UFC.
Yeah.
And that's the guy who we think is going to have something and upset Alexander Volkanovsky. I'd be shocked.
No, absolutely not. Like, I don't know why the odds are this close. Brian Ortega is just not that dude. Mac, what do you think?
I'm with you guys as well. I hate that we all like Volkanovsky so much, but I like him too. I don't think Brian Ortega is on his level. Like you said, it seems like he's always fighting to get to this point, and then it looks like he has 2 inches on him. I'm looking at the tail of the tape. He's 5'8", but
2 inches
somehow.
Taller, but Volkanovsky, I think, has the reach advantage.
Exactly. Yeah, I never understand how that's even possible, but it looks like Volkanovsky has a 72-inch reach and Ortega's 69, and he's 2 inches taller, so the height difference shouldn't affect him at all. I like Volkanovsky in this fight. It opened at -189, and it's gone down to -180 at some shops. And then it's moved in the opposite direction for Ortega from +135 to +140. So not really anything to make of those odds. I don't see why they're so close. And like Keith mentioned before, 64% of the Tapology predictions are on Volkanovsky. So a lot of times when the odds are that close and Tapology has heavily one dude, it's usually for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. I can't understand why Vegas is feeling Ortega. Someone out there is thinking, he's going to win. I don't get it.
The over-under set at 4.5, it looks like, for this too. What do you guys think about that? Under or over? You think it goes the distance, or?
That's a tough one.
I mean, it could be. I don't see Volk submitting Ortega. I don't necessarily even see it stopping on ground and pound. I don't know if I see Volk knocking out Brian Ortega. I think maybe the doctor stoppage or a decision.
Yeah. Volk by decision is probably the best odds that you'll get for this fight. We'll see what it comes out at, but I think I like Volkanovsky by decision.
Yeah, so do I. I mean,
I could see Volk, going and being the aggressor, going out there catching him. Maybe pop a takedown, getting an overhand. Just being the aggressor, catching him with a shot, backing Ortega up against the cage. Ortega stumbled, and him going in there and just finishing the fight with a series of hooks. I could see that happening. So I maybe it is TKO, maybe Volk by finish. I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I like personally.
If you can do those like double chance where it's Volk by decision or points or just finisher points, that might be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys,
this is the Ultimate Fighter fight too, right?
Yeah, the coaches.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Volk's the coach.
Yeah. So we'll run down our picks one more time for all you sweet people at home that made it this far into the video. So I got Chris Daukaus, Merab Dvalishvili. I like the under in the Dan Hooker and the Nasrat fight. I got Jessica Andrade, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Nick Diaz, Valentina Chavchenko, and Alexander Volkanovsky.
I have Matt Semelsberger, Nick Maxov. I have Uros Medic. I have Talia Santos, Chris Dukakis, Dan Hooker, Merab Dvalishvili, Jessica Andrade, Curtis Blades, Robbie Lawler, Valentina Shevchenko, Alexander Volkanovsky.
All right.
And mine are Dan Hooker, Rozenstruik is my underdog pick. I have Nick Diaz, Shevchenko, and Volkanovsky.
All right. Well, those are some good picks. All you people at home, make sure that you comment down below what you think of our picks tonight for UFC 266. Make sure you're liking this video. Don't dislike it. That's just mean. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. We're going to have plenty of hot content coming out for you soon. We got our football show. We got this show for UFC. We're going to be having a basketball show coming up pretty soon. And when the PLL season comes back around, we will be having a lacrosse show as well. So like, subscribe, comment. Thank you very much. Fellas, thanks for joining me. Have a great night.